Welcome back to True God Code. If you are new here, we are glad you found this. This channel exists for one purpose: to take the most significant prophetic framework in Scripture, apply rigorous research methodology to it, and document what we find honestly, completely, and without flinching from where the evidence leads. What you are about to watch is one of the most personal videos we have produced. It is also one of the most important. Most people who follow the names of Peter Thiel's companies hear a story about a tech billionaire who loves Lord of the Rings and names things after his favorite book. This video is about why that explanation is insufficient, why the specific names chosen, read carefully in the order they were chosen against what those names actually mean in the source material, tell a different story entirely. A story about a system of total surveillance, total weapons capacity, total financial control, and total political succession that was announced in public in plain sight using the language of mythology that its architects believed most people would never actually read. This video connects the Tolkien naming architecture to the disclosure doctrine, the principle embedded in the legal structure of the ancient conflict between good and evil that requires the darkness to announce what it is doing before it can claim full possession of what it takes. It covers every company, every name, every meaning, and what they say together when you read them as a complete sentence rather than a collection of branding decisions. It also contains something unusual for this channel, a personal note, because Lord of the Rings is not just research material here, it is something closer to home than that. And what has been done with it demands to be named for what it is. If this kind of work matters to you, if you believe the truth is worth finding and worth sharing, regardless of where it leads, please take a moment right now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing. It means everything for getting this research in front of the people who need to see it. And if you know someone who has been asking questions about the concentration of power in this country and who is building it and why, share this video with them. This is exactly what they have been looking for. Now, let us read the names. The naming of the beast. How Peter Thiel used Lord of the Rings to tell you exactly what he was building. They have to tell you there is a principle embedded in the ancient conflict between good and evil that most people have never considered. It appears in the legal architecture of Scripture. It appears in the pattern of every dark system that has ever risen to threaten human freedom. And it appears in unmistakable clarity in the naming conventions of the most powerful private defense and surveillance network in American history. The principle is this: they have to tell you, not because they are careless, not because they are arrogant, though many of them are, but because the covenant nature of the adversary's system requires disclosure. The courtroom of heaven operates on rules. One of those rules is that deception requires consent. The darkness cannot fully claim what the light has not been given the opportunity to see and refuse. God declares his plans. He tells you what he is doing. He gives you the choice. The adversary must operate under the same constraint, because the adversary's entire legal claim rests on the argument that humanity chose this, that they saw it, that they accepted it, that they were complicit. This is why every system of control in human history has announced itself, in symbols, in names, in architecture, in the language of art and mythology that the architects believe most people are too distracted, too comfortable, or too intimidated to actually read. Peter Thiel is a man who read Lord of the Rings more than 10 times and memorized large sections of it. He understands mythology as a language. He understands that names carry meaning, not the surface meaning of branding, not the incidental meaning of a tech founder who liked a book, but the deep structural meaning of a man who consciously chose specific artifacts from a specific cosmology to name specific tools in a specific system. This video is about what those names tell you, and what they tell you is everything. The man and the book. Before we trace the architecture, we have to understand the architect. Peter Thiel was born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1967 and raised in California. He was a mathematics prodigy, a national chess champion, and from his earliest years a reader of enormous appetite. He read science fiction, he read philosophy, he read Ayn Rand, and above everything else he read J.R.R. Tolkien. His biographer Max Chafkin documents that Thiel read The Lord of the Rings more than 10 times. He memorized it in large sections. This was not casual fandom. This was the behavior of someone who found in a book a complete cosmology, a total framework for understanding the nature of power, the nature of evil, the relationship between exceptional individuals and the corrupt masses, and the mechanics of civilizational struggle. At Stanford in 1987, Thiel encountered the philosopher René Girard, whose mimetic theory gave his Tolkien instincts an intellectual foundation. Girard argued that the crowd is always irrational, always violent, and always hostile to the exceptional individual who escapes its imitation trap. The crowd scapegoats the exceptional. The mob destroys what it cannot understand. Tolkien and Girard together produced a worldview that has never left Thiel. Civilization is always under existential threat. The forces of darkness are organized, patient, and possess instruments of total power. Only a small fellowship of exceptional individuals willing to do what the weak and the comfortable cannot stands between the world and destruction. The crowd will not save the world. The crowd will destroy it. The fellowship must act. This is not a reading of Tolkien. This is a misreading of Tolkien. And understanding the misreading is the key to understanding everything Thiel built. What Tolkien actually wrote. J.R.R. Tolkien served in the trenches of the Battle of the Somme. He lost nearly every close friend he had in the mud of World War I. He was profoundly anti-industrial, anti-imperial, and deeply suspicious of concentrated power in any form. He was a devout Catholic who believed that the ring of power, the ultimate instrument of control, could not be wielded for good even by good people, not by Gandalf, not by Galadriel, not by Aragorn, the rightful king, not by anyone. His central argument, stated with full clarity and repeated throughout the text, is this: the desire to use great power for good purposes is itself the primary mechanism of corruption. The ring does not corrupt through evil intentions, it corrupts through good ones. It tells its bearer that they are exceptional enough to wield it responsibly, that the rules that apply to lesser people do not apply to them, that this time, in their hands, it will be used for the right purposes. Tolkien said, no, the ring must be destroyed, not used, not controlled, not wielded by the worthy, unmade entirely. His heroes are not the powerful. They are the least powerful creatures in Middle-earth. Hobbits, small, ordinary, overlooked. They triumph not because they are stronger than the darkness, but because they want nothing the darkness can offer. The ring has no hold on Samwise Gamgee because Sam does not want to rule anyone. He wants to go home to his garden. That desire, humble, particular, irreducibly personal, is the one thing the ring of power cannot corrupt. Tolkien's Shire is worth saving precisely because it is small and ordinary and unambitious. Not because it is the seat of power, not because it is strategically important, because it is home. Because the things that make it worth living in are the exact things that systems of total control are designed to destroy. This is the book Peter Thiel memorized. This is the mythology he took as his own, and this is what he did with it. The first naming, 2003. In 2003, Peter Thiel had a company to build. He had an idea: take the fraud detection algorithm PayPal had built to track criminals and apply it to the intelligence needs of a post-9/11 American government drowning in data it could not process. He had CIA seed money. He had a philosopher from Frankfurt to run it. He had a Stanford CS graduate to help build it. He had a PayPal engineer, and he needed a name. He named it Palantir. In Tolkien, the Palantiri are the seeing stones, 7 crystal orbs created by the elves and distributed across the kingdoms of Middle-earth for the purpose of communication and governance. Through them, kings could perceive events at vast distances, coordinate their defenses, and speak to one another across thousands of miles. They were instruments of governance, intelligence, and coordination at civilizational scale. And then Sauron acquired several of them, and everything changed. Because the Palantiri, In Tolkien, do not lie. They show what is true, but they can be made to show only a curated portion of the truth. Selected images, extracted from context, designed to lead the viewer toward a predetermined conclusion. Sauron used his Palantir to break the wizard Saruman, the most powerful mind on the side of good, by showing him only what Sauron wanted him to see, until Saruman's own intelligence and pride completed the corruption. Denethor, the steward of Gondor, received a Palantir and used it loyally for years, watching enemy movements, gathering intelligence, believing he was seeing clearly. What he was actually seeing was Sauron's carefully curated presentation of hopelessness. True facts, selected and framed to produce despair. Denethor burned himself alive on a funeral pyre because the Seeing Stone showed him what the Dark Lord wanted him to see. Peter Thiel named his government surveillance company after these instruments, not after a sword, not after a shield, not after anything protective, after the instruments of surveillance that corrupt through the power of seeing everything, that are weaponized not through lies, but through the selective presentation of truth. This is the first name, and it tells you what the first company does. Building the Financial Architecture, 2005 to 2012. Between 2005 and 2012, Thiel built the capital architecture that would fund everything that followed. He named each piece of it after a different Tolkien entity. Taken together, these names describe not a portfolio of investments, but a complete financial cosmology. And every name he chose reveals something about how he understands what he is building. In 2005, he founded Founders Fund with his PayPal colleagues. Within his inner circle, this fund carries an internal nickname. It is called the Precious, that is Gollum's name for the One Ring. Gollum was once a creature called Smeagol, small, ordinary, not unlike a hobbit. He found the ring, and it consumed 500 years of his life. He called it his Precious because the ring had replaced everything else: his relationships, his identity, his capacity for joy, his connection to the world. He existed only to possess and protect it. The Precious was his entire life, and it destroyed him. Thiel's inner circle named his master fund the Ring of Capital that all other rings serve, after the most corrupting artifact in the story he loves, the fund that controls everything, the Precious. In 2010, he founded Valar Ventures. In Tolkien's cosmology, the Valar are the 15 godlike immortal beings who shaped the world before any living creature walked it. They carved the mountains, filled the seas, kindled the stars. They are the divine architects of reality itself. Thiel named his international fintech fund the instrument through which he extends his financial reach across the globe, after the divine beings who shaped the world. In 2012, he founded Mithril Capital. In Tolkien, Mithril is the most precious metal in existence, indestructible, invaluable, found only in the deepest mines of Moria. Gandalf says a single shirt of Mithril mail is worth more than the entire Shire. It cannot be tarnished. It cannot be broken. He named his later stage capital vehicle after the indestructible precious metal. For his personal wealth, the holdings that shelter the billions accumulated from PayPal, Facebook, and Palantir, he created holding companies named Rivendell 1, Rivendell 7, and Rivendell 25, and a trust called Rivendell Trust. In Tolkien, Rivendell is the last safe haven, Elrond's hidden valley, the place where the Fellowship assembles before departing into danger, the refuge where the shards of the broken sword were kept for 3,000 years, waiting for the rightful king, the sanctuary before the wilderness. Thiel named his personal financial sanctuary after the last safe elven haven. His billions rest in Rivendell, while his instruments move through the world. And for his personal supply holding company, the entity that holds provisions and resources, he chose the name Lembas. In Tolkien, Lembas is the elven waybread that sustained Frodo and Sam across the slopes of Mordor when every other resource was gone. One cake fills the stomach of a grown man. It is the food for an impossible quest. Thiel named his provisions vehicle after the food that keeps travelers alive on journeys that should not be survivable. Read these names together: the seeing stone that corrupts, the master ring that consumes its bearer, the godlike world-shaping creators, the indestructible precious metal, the last safe haven, the food for an impossible quest. This is not a fan naming his companies after things he loves. This is a man using a mythology as a map, and every name on that map describes precisely what the named entity actually does in the real world. The Exile and the Reforging, 2017. By 2014, Peter Thiel had found his weapons builder. Luckey was a homeschooled garage engineer from Long Beach who had built the most advanced virtual reality headset in the world at age 17. Founders Fund invested in his Oculus Rift before Facebook bought the company for $2 billion. Thiel and Luckey were connected from 2012. In 2014, at a Founders Fund partner retreat, Luckey met Trey Stevens, a former US intelligence community analyst who had joined Palantir in 2008 and moved to Founders Fund in 2013 with a specific assignment from Thiel: find the next Palantir or SpaceX. Find the company that will do for weapons what Palantir did for intelligence. Stevens found it in Luckey. They began talking. They talked for 3 years. And then, on March 31st, 2017, Facebook fired Luckey for a $9,000 political donation to a pro-Trump group. Luckey disappeared from public life for months. Then he came back. And when he named the company he built on his return, he chose a name from the mythology of his patron. He named it Anduril. In Tolkien, Anduril is the sword of Aragorn, reforged from the shards of Narsil, the blade that had been broken when Isildur cut the One Ring from Sauron's hand. For 3,000 years the shards were kept in Rivendell, Thiel's financial sanctuary, waiting. When Aragorn, the rightful king, who had spent decades in exile as a ranger under a false name, was finally ready to claim his throne, the sword was reforged and given to him. Flame of the West, the blade that cannot be broken again. Luckey was 24 years old. He had been fired by Facebook for a political donation. He had spent months in the wilderness, and he named his company after the reforged sword of the exiled rightful king, returning to reclaim what was his. He was not naming a brand. He was declaring a mythology. He was telling you who he believed he was, who he believed his patron was, and what he believed he was building. Anduril was founded in June 2017. Founders Fund seeded it immediately. Within 8 years, it would hold a $20 billion Army contract, begin producing autonomous fighter jets at a 5 million square foot factory in Ohio, and participate in the most significant US military campaign since the Iraq War. The Political Ring, 2019. 2 years after Anduril's founding, a man named James Donald Bowman, who had renamed himself J.D. Vance, was preparing to enter politics. He had grown up in poverty in Middletown, Ohio. He had served in the Marine Corps. He had graduated from Yale Law School. He had worked at Thiel's Mithril Capital. And in 2019 he co-founded a venture capital fund in Cincinnati. He named it Narya. In Tolkien, Narya is the Ring of Fire, one of the 3 elven rings that Sauron never touched and could never corrupt. It was given secretly to the wizard Gandalf when he first arrived in Middle-earth, with these words, "This is the Ring of Fire, and herewith thou shalt rekindle hearts to the valor of old in a world that grows chill." Narya does not dominate. It does not command. It kindles. It inspires people to courage. It is the ring given to the wizard who shows up at the beginning of the age and sets the events of the story in motion without ever claiming power for himself. Vance named his political vehicle after Gandalf's ring. Thiel funded it, alongside Mark Andreessen and Eric Schmidt. 2 years later, Thiel donated $15 million to Vance's Ohio Senate campaign. 2 years after that, Thiel and Musk lobbied Donald Trump to choose Vance as his running mate. On January 20th, 2025, J.D. Vance, the man who named his fund after the Ring of Fire, was sworn in as the 50th Vice President of the United States. He told a podcast 4 years earlier that a lot of his conservative worldview had been influenced by Tolkien growing up. The ring-bearer is in the West Wing, the bank of the Dragon's Mountain, 2025. In the summer of 2025, Palmer Luckey, Joe Lonsdale and Peter Thiel co-founded a bank. They named it Erebor. In Tolkien, Erebor is the Lonely Mountain, the greatest dwarven kingdom in Middle-earth, carved into the heart of a solitary peak, its vast hoard of gold and precious stones accumulated over centuries. Then the dragon Smaug came. He took the mountain. He lay on the hoard for 200 years, sleeping on gold, burning alive anything that approached. The entire story of The Hobbit is a company of dwarves, guided by a wizard, accompanied by an unlikely thief, journeying to reclaim the mountain and its treasure from the dragon. The men who build autonomous fighter jets and the AI targeting system of the American military named their bank after the Dragon's Mountain. Erebor received its federal banking charter in 8 months, a process that normally takes years. It is stablecoin native. It is headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, 20 miles from Arsenal 1, the weapons factory producing autonomous fighter jets in Palmer Luckey's home state. The network now has its own bank, in the same city as its arsenal, named after the greatest hoard in Middle-earth. The weapons are in Ohio, the gold is in Ohio, and the bank that holds the gold is named after the mountain that the dragon seized. What the protégés built. The convention spreads. After Thiel established the naming convention, his protégé carried it forward, not because they were instructed to, because the culture had become DNA. Trey Stevens, the former intelligence analyst who built Palantir's government relationships, moved to Founders Fund, and co-founded Anduril, named his space company Varda, after the Queen of the Stars in Tolkien's cosmology. He named his defense incubator Valinor, after the home of the Valar, the divine realm beyond Middle-earth to which the blessed are permitted to sail at the end of their lives, the place beyond. Kevin Hartz, a former partner at Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, founded a home security company in 2024 and named it Sauron, after the Dark Lord himself, the embodiment of evil, the all-seeing eye. He said it was tongue-in-cheek. His company was funded by Joe Lonsdale's 8VC and by executives at Palantir. The surveillance company named after the corrupting Seeing Stones helped fund the home security company named after the being who weaponized those stones. Valar Atomics, a nuclear reactor company whose $130 million Series A was personally backed by Palmer Luckey, named itself after the same divine beings as Thiel's Valar Ventures. The Valar shaped the world. Now one Tolkien-named entity funds another Tolkien-named entity, building the energy infrastructure that Tolkien-named weapons systems and surveillance platforms require to operate. The convention spread outward, from Thiel to Luckey, to Stevens, to Vance, to Hartz, to the funds that back the next generation, until a dozen entities across defense, surveillance, banking, energy and politics all carry names from the same mythology, all founded after the relationships with Thiel were already established, all following the convention of the man who memorized the book, the theology of disclosure. Now here is the question that this pattern demands you ask. Why? The easy answer, the answer Thiel would give, the answer that has been given in dozens of profiles and interviews, is that he loves Tolkien. He memorized the books. He names things after what he loves. It's branding that reflects his personal interests, nothing more. That answer collapses under the weight of the evidence. A man who casually names things after his favorite book does not name his surveillance company after the instruments that corrupt the powerful. He does not name his master fund after the most destructive artifact in the story. He does not name his weapons company after the exile returning with a reforged sword. He does not name his bank after the dragon's hoard. He does not cultivate a network of protégés who independently continue his naming convention across defense, energy, banking, and the vice presidency of the United States. A man who names things this way is making a statement. He is constructing a mythology. He is building a story, and in that story he and his network are the Fellowship, the forces of good, the exceptional heroes defending civilization against the darkness. But look at what the names actually say, stripped of the heroic self-identification and read for what the objects themselves represent in the source material. The seeing stone that corrupts the powerful, the ring that consumes its bearer, the godlike beings who shape the world before any creature could consent, the indestructible precious metal that cannot be questioned, the last safe haven before the wilderness, the food for impossible quests, the exiled king's reforged weapon, the dragon's mountain of guarded treasure, the wizard's ring of fire that kindles others to action, the stars that the divine queen set in place. These are not the tools of freedom, these are the tools of total sight, total wealth, total power, total weapons, total financial control, and total political succession. Mapped against the 7 layers of the system this framework has documented, surveillance, weapons, finance, banking, cognitive AI, covenant, and political succession, they describe a complete architecture of control, and they describe it in public, in the names of companies with stock tickers and Pentagon contracts and Senate votes. This is the theological principle that the true God Code framework identifies as the disclosure doctrine. The adversary's legal claim requires consent. The darkness cannot fully claim what has not been given the opportunity to refuse. So the system announces itself. In language most people will not read, using a mythology most people will not interpret, through names that most people will file under the category of tech founder nerd culture and promptly forget. The Fellowship in this framework's reading is not Thiel and Luckey and Vance and Carp. The Fellowship is every person who sees the names, reads what they mean, and refuses. A personal note. I want to pause here for a moment, because this one is personal. The True God Code channel exists to decipher, to document what the evidence shows, to follow the research wherever it leads and report what is found without flinching. That is the commitment this channel made from its first video, and it is the commitment that governs every word spoken here. But Lord of the Rings is not just research material for me, it is one of the most important books of my life. I came to it as a child. I came back to it as an adult. I have lived with it through seasons of joy and seasons of real darkness. And what it has always offered, what I believe Tolkien intended it to offer, is this, that the darkness is enormous and organized and patient and in possession of instruments of power that dwarf anything the free peoples of the world can assemble, and that in spite of all of that, it fails. It fails not because the powerful overthrow it. It fails because the humble refuse to serve it, because the small and the ordinary and the overlooked, the ones who want nothing that the ring can offer, simply keep walking, keep carrying the weight, keep going home. That is what Tolkien wrote, that is what the book means. And when I look at what Peter Thiel has done with it, when I see the surveillance system named after the corrupting seeing stones, the master fund named after the One Ring, the weapons company named after the returning king's sword, the bank named after the dragon's mountain, it disturbs me in a way that goes beyond the research. It disturbs me because they took something that was written as a warning about exactly this kind of power and dressed their system of control in its language. They took Tolkien's deepest argument, that the ring cannot be wielded for good, even by good people, that the only answer to ultimate power is to destroy it rather than use it, and they named their ultimate power after it. They put on the Fellowship's clothes while building the ring, and then they released it into the world wearing those clothes, counting on most people never to notice. This channel notices, and in the spirit of the book they co-opted, "We refuse." The complete reading, what the names tell us. Here is the full architecture of the Tolkien naming system, read in the order it was built, interpreted for what each name reveals about what each entity actually does. Palantir, founded 2003, named after the Seeing Stones, instruments of total surveillance that reveal truth but corrupt through selective presentation. In the story, Sauron's stones broke Saruman and drove Denethor to suicide. What Palantir actually is: the AI surveillance and targeting operating system of the American military and intelligence complex, used to identify targets, track immigrants, and process battlefield intelligence. The name announces, "We see everything, and we will show you only what serves our purposes." Valar Ventures, founded 2010, named after the divine beings who shaped the world before any living creature could consent to the shaping. In the story, the Valar made the decisions about how reality would work before anyone existed to vote on them. What Valar Ventures actually is: the international fintech fund that extends the network's financial influence across Europe, South America, Africa, and the Middle East. The name announces, "We are the world shapers, and the world we are shaping did not ask our permission." Founders Fund, the Precious, founded 2005, named after Gollum's name for the One Ring, the corrupting master artifact that consumed its bearer's entire existence. In the story, Gollum ceased to be a person and became entirely defined by his possession of the ring. What Founders Fund actually is: the master capital vehicle controlling the entire network: surveillance, weapons, banking, energy, and political succession. The name announces, this is the ring that controls all the other rings, the precious that everything else serves. Mithril Capital, founded 2012, named after the indestructible precious metal that cannot be questioned or broken. In the story, Mithril's value is absolute. It is beyond debate, beyond price, beyond the ordinary rules of valuation. What Mithril Capital actually is: the later stage capital vehicle through which Thiel's network moved into second-generation technology companies and introduced J.D. Vance to its inner workings. The name announces, "Our capital cannot be broken and cannot be tarnished." Rivendell. Trust and Rivendell LLCs, named after the last safe elven haven, the sanctuary where the Fellowship assembled, where the broken sword was kept, where the rightful king's weapon waited 3,000 years to be reforged. What these entities actually are: Thiel's personal wealth shelter, housing $5 billion in a tax-free Roth IRA, safe and untouchable while everything else moves through the world. The name announces, this is where the treasure rests. This is the sanctuary that no one can reach. Lembas LLC, named after the elven waybread that sustains travelers on impossible journeys. What this entity actually is: a personal provisions holding company. The name announces, we are on a quest that ordinary provisions cannot sustain. We have the food for an impossible journey. And Durul, founded 2017, named after the reforged sword of the exiled rightful king, the weapon of restoration, the blade that announces the return of legitimate authority. In the story, Anduril was brandished before the Black Gate to draw Sauron's attention and buy time for the ring-bearer to complete the quest. What Anduril actually is: the autonomous weapon system of the American military-industrial complex, pilotless fighter jets, autonomous submarines, Barracuda cruise missiles, sentry towers on the southern border, and a 5 million square foot weapons factory in Ohio. The name announces, the rightful king has returned, with a weapon that cannot be broken, and he is here to enforce the order he believes is his by right. Narya Capital, founded 2019, named after the Ring of Fire, the ring that kindles courage in others, given to the wizard who shows up at the beginning of the age and guides events without claiming power directly. What Narya Capital actually is: the investment vehicle and cultural brand through which J.D. Vance was funded, developed, and positioned for the vice presidency of the United States, with the backing of Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, and Eric Schmidt. The name announces, this ring does not dominate, it kindles. Watch what? It kindles. Vada Space, Founded 2020, named after the Queen of the Stars, the divine being who set the lights of heaven in their places and is beloved above all the Valar. What Vada Space actually is, a dual-use space company manufacturing pharmaceuticals in microgravity and providing hypersonic testbed services to the US Air Force. The name announces, "We have placed our instruments in the stars. We govern what falls from heaven." Valinor Enterprises, founded 2024, named after the undying lands, the divine realm beyond Middle-earth, the destination for those who are permitted to pass beyond the world. What Valinor Enterprises actually is, the defense incubator building the next generation of national security companies from Palantir and Anduril alumni. The name announces, this is beyond. This is where what comes after is built. Erebor Bank, founded 2025. Named after the Lonely Mountain, the greatest kingdom in Middle-earth, whose hoard was seized by a dragon who lay on the gold for 200 years. What Erebor Bank actually is, the federally chartered digital bank serving AI, defense, cryptocurrency, and technology companies, headquartered 20 miles from the autonomous weapons factory in Columbus, Ohio. The name announces, we have reclaimed the mountain. The hoard is ours again, and we have built a bank around it. Valar Atomics, founded 2023. Backed by Palmer Luckey personally, named again after the divine world shapers. What Valar Atomics actually is, a nuclear reactor company building the energy infrastructure to power data centers, autonomous systems, and industrial operations at civilizational scale. The name announces the world shapers are building the energy that powers the world they are shaping. Sauron, founded 2024, named after the Dark Lord himself, the all-seeing eye, the maker of the One Ring, the adversary, founded by a former partner at Founders Fund, Thiel's Master Ring, funded by Joe Lonsdale's Ached VC and by Palantir executives. What Sauron actually is, a home security company using military-grade surveillance, facial recognition, autonomous drones, LiDAR, thermal cameras, to protect the homes of the network's own executives. The name announces what the naming of all the others implies. We are the eye. We are watching. And the watching is the point. What the story says. Tolkien's story ends with the destruction of the ring and the sailing of the Fellowship into the west. Frodo, wounded beyond healing by what he carried, departs. Sam goes home to his garden. The Shire is saved, imperfectly, still marked by what passed through it, but saved. The reason it is saved is not that anyone was powerful enough to defeat the darkness. It is that the darkness was unmade, not captured, not controlled, not wielded by better hands, unmade. The framework this channel documents does not claim to know how this ends. It does not tell you the date of the ring's destruction or the name of the hobbit who will carry it. It documents what has been built, who built it, what they named it, and what those names mean when read honestly. What the names mean read together and in the order they were built is a complete system. The eye that sees everything, the master ring that controls everything, the world shapers who funded the world, the indestructible capital, the reforged weapon, the ring of fire that kindled the political air, the dragon's bank, the queen's stars, the land beyond. It is a system designed for total visibility, total control, total financial authority, total weapons capacity, and total political succession. It is a one-world governance architecture built by a small group of men who believe they are the Fellowship and who have named their instruments of control after the story that says such instruments cannot be safely wielded by anyone. The irony is that they read the book. They know what the seeing stones do. They know what the ring does. They know that Saruman began as a force for good. They know that Denethor burned himself alive, and they built it anyway, because the principle they actually absorbed from Tolkien was not Tolkien's, it was Sauron's, the one who always believed that if he could just possess sufficient power, sufficient sight, sufficient force, sufficient control. He could order the world correctly. That the problem was never power itself, only who held it. This channel was built to name that argument for what it is, to read the names they chose, to see what they built, and to refuse what they are offering, not because we are powerful enough to stop it, but because that is what hobbits do. The names have been read, the story has been told, not by us, but by the men who built it and named it and released it into the world, wearing the clothes of the Fellowship. We said at the beginning of this channel that we do not interpret, we decipher, then we watch. This video is an example of what that means in practice. We did not assign these names, we did not build these companies, we did not choose Tolkien as the mythology they did. We only read what they wrote and reported what it says. What it says is a complete architecture of control, announced in public, verified by documented sources, readable by anyone willing to look at the names and take them seriously. If today's video opened something for you, if you saw the pattern clearly for the first time, or if it confirmed something you already sensed but could not yet articulate, please like this video. That single action tells the platform this content deserves to reach more people, and more people seeing it is the entire reason this work exists. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. There is more. The Tolkien architecture is one layer of a much larger documented system. The videos that follow go deeper into every layer. The covenant, the surveillance, the weapons, the financial infrastructure, the cognitive AI, the religious legitimacy, and the political succession. Everything connects, everything is documented, and we are not finished. If true God code has been valuable to you, if this research has sharpened your understanding of what is being built in this world and who is building it, share it. With your family, with your church, with the person in your life who has been watching the news and feeling that something is deeply wrong but cannot find language for it. That person exists in almost every life. This might be exactly the language they needed. We are grateful you are here. We are grateful you take this seriously. And we are grateful, more than we can adequately express, that Tolkien wrote what he wrote, that he gave the world a story about a darkness that announces itself in the language of power, and about small ordinary people who refuse it simply by knowing what it is. That is still the answer. It was always the answer. We do not interpret, we decipher, then we watch. We will see you in the next one.